Hello, my name is Matt Seelinger. I'm the Chief Historian of the Army Historical Foundation, and you are listening to the Foundation's official podcast. Today, our guest is Captain Stephen Mercer of the Service Veterans of Northern California Honor Guard. Their commitment to honoring those who have served this nation is a mission that AHF shares, and it's our hope that this interview will highlight the wonderful work they do. So let's start off with a bit about yourself, about your background. Can you speak about your own military service?
Yes, I started in the ROTC in 1957 at the City College of New York.
Oh,
And you probably know one of my classmates,
Owen
uh,
Powell.
Colin Powell. He was the commander of Pershing Rifles, and I pledged Pershing Rifles that year. So I got to meet Powell, not spend a lot of time with him because we only overlapped for a year. But that started me off in the military. Just the fact that I had joined the ROTC and Pershing Rifles, there were a lot of gung-ho guys. So it took me a while to get out of college. I graduated in '63. I took a commission in the Corps of Engineers. I went to airborne school and ranger school, served a tour in Germany with the 9th Engineers, and then served in Vietnam for a year, and a couple of other assignments, essentially a total of 6 years in the Army. So that's essentially my active duty commitment and my commitment prior to that in the ROTC, but I've kind of had a soft spot for the Army in my heart for the entire time that I've been associated with it. So that's how it all began.
So as an engineer, did you spend some time at Fort Belvoir?
Yes, actually, I had, you could say 3 tours at Fort Belvoir. I had, or 4. I had summer camp at Fort Belvoir, but in my second 2 years of ROTC. Then I went to Belvoir for my engineer basic. Then when I went to Germany on my first tour, they called me back to Belvoir when they were starting the engineer officer candidate school. So I was a company commander of a officer candidate company during training there. Then I went to Vietnam, and then when I came back from Vietnam, I went back to Belvoir and served in the Department of Doctrine Review and Literature, doing lessons learned from the Vietnam conflict.
What unit were you assigned to in Vietnam?
I was with the Military Assistance Command, so I was an advisor, engineer advisor to the Vietnamese.
Okay. Okay. Now, did you have any then reserve or guard after active duty?
No, after active duty, I kind of got a little bit disillusioned, frankly, in Vietnam because we were fighting with our hands tied. And I said, this is not what I signed up for. So when I left, I said, I got to concentrate on my civilian career, and I can't be worried about drills and summer camps and that kind of thing. So I never did. I had no obligation to go reserve, so I didn't.
What then inspired you to join the Northern California Honor Guard?
Well, that's an interesting story. I started thinking about, as you get on in years, you start thinking about where you want to be interred. And my mother and father are back in New York. My father was a police officer, and they have a plot at one of the cemeteries for police officers. So I'm not eligible for that. So the more I thought about it, I said, I really would like to get back with my Army roots. And since I had been associated with the Army Museum for quite a while. That kind of reconnected me with the Army. So I said, I should go to a military cemetery. Well, where I am now, they have two military cemeteries in San Francisco, one at the Presidio and one near the San Francisco airport, and they're all full. You can't get in there. So I searched around and I found that the nearest other cemetery is Sacramento Valley National Cemetery. It's about 60 miles from where I live. So I said, I should go up there and see if I can reserve an apartment there at the cemetery. So I drove up there, and I don't know if you have ever seen that cemetery, but it is a beautiful, beautiful location. And it is huge. It's going to rival or exceed Arlington in size when it's done. It's going to be one of the largest cemeteries in the country. We already have over 40,000 people buried here. So I looked around, I said, this is where I'm going to go. And I found out I couldn't do any reservations at the time. I had to go through the whole process with the VA, but there was a little recruiting stand there in the office, and it said Sacramento Valley, at that time, Sacramento Valley National Cemetery Honor Guard. I said, oh, that sounds interesting. So I picked up the brochure and I took it home and I looked at it and I said, I'm retired now. I got time that I can manipulate around. Let me look into this. So I contacted the commander, and I drove back out there and had a long conversation with him and an interview. And the commitment actually turned out to be nowhere near as onerous as you might think. All they wanted you to do is serve 2 days a month. I said, you got to be joking. 2 days a month? You can do that in your sleep. Sign me up. So I had to come out supposedly for training, but it all, how it all comes back to you. They ran me through the manual of arms, and I had been on a drill team. I said, geez, this is nothing. I can do this in my sleep also. So they essentially hired me on the spot. And I started coming out there my 2 days a month. And then I said, 2 days, not enough. I'll start coming out there every week. So I started coming out every week. And that's how my commitment to the Honor Guard started. And it grew from there. Over time, I became a mission leader, and eventually I became commander. So it became kind of like a passion of mine to people said, where do you like to hang out when you're not at home? I said, well, I like to hang out at the cemetery because it's a kind of an inspirational place to me. So that's how it all began.
Okay. It's purely volunteer, correct? The
Yeah,
honor
we're all
guard?
volunteers.
Okay.
We're all volunteers. And you had asked about a history of the Honor Guard. I gave you my history, but you might be interested in how the Honor Guard started,
Sure.
because I think that ties in, all right? The cemetery opened in 2007, and there was a gentleman, his name is Andy Derflinger. He was a Vietnam veteran of the Navy. He was a frogman, actually, the UDT at the time. I think actually the SEALs didn't start till after that, so he was kind of a precursor of the SEALs. And he and his wife went out to the cemetery, and he noticed that they were not doing rifle volleys for most of the services. And he found out that the military funding was not enough, supposedly, to cover rifle teams. So he was a member of a PSTD group, and he talked to some of the guys there and said, that's terrible that they're not getting the full honors. And the PTSD counselor said, well, Andy, do something about it. So he pulled together a bunch of guys who were members of the Brotherhood of Vietnam Veterans, and they got together and put uniforms together, essentially Vietnam camouflage uniforms, and they started going out and doing rifle volleys. So he talked to a local congressman. They got the rifles. He paid for the uniforms himself, and that's how it all began. And then over time, it grew into what we have now as the organization. But and he passed away, I think, what was it? Well, he passed away a few years back, but he actually saw the thing grow to the point where we're out there 4 days a week now.
And how many people are in the honor guard?
Currently, we have a little over 30 members, and I think one of your questions asked, what's the qualifications? When the honor guard began, you had to be a veteran, and you had to have some kind of military experience to be on the honor guard. But our big issue is recruiting, because, of course, the services are during what would be called normal business hours. So unless you have some kind of a flexible schedule or you're retired, sometimes it's problematic for people. So when I became commander, I had a discussion with some of the guys, and I said, we need to open this up, because we have people who are volunteering who don't have military service. We have a lot of retired police officers that want to get involved. In fact, the current commander is a retired police officer, never served in the military. But he's like one of the most dedicated guys you will ever see. He feels like this is a mission in life for him. So we opened it up to civilians. Any civilian that wanted to serve, as long as they are willing to commit. So we now have retired police officers. We have one woman whose husband is buried there. He was a veteran, and she wants to serve to honor him. So she's a civilian, and she's on the honor guard. We have other people who have relatives buried out there. We have one guy he's a civilian, but his father served in Korea, and he wants to honor his father by being on the honor guard. So we have probably 40% civilians now.
Huh.
And we put them through a training program for the military manual of arms and how to fire a rifle and that kind of thing. And some of our most dedicated people are civilians.
This isn't an important question, but what type of rifles? I saw
We
those.
use an M1 Grands.
Okay.
The rifle I used when I was on the drill team back in 1958, and it's the rifle I started with when I went to engineer school. It's the rifle I qualified on. It's a kind of a relic and an honored part of history.
Definitely. My next question is that the public often mixes up a few of the responsibilities of the honor guard that the honor guard conducts. Notably, it's a common misconception that soldiers are given a 21-gun salute. As a historical organization, we attempt to educate the public on the proper 3-rifle volley salute. Can you speak on any experiences you've had relating to educating the public on the proper responsibilities of honor guard duty?
Oh, you got that right. Part of my duty as commander was to do the scheduling. So we have a website where you can sign up, and we also have the funeral homes calls and whatever. So I would take the calls from family who are trying to set up the rifle team. And I would say half the time they say, I'm calling to arrange the 21-gun salute. So I had to, after taking a few of these calls, I got to gauge whether the person calling was a distraught person or a pretty even-headed person that could take a joke, because sometimes you have to lighten the moment and things like this. So I started asking people, I said, well, was the deceased ever president of the United States? And I get his silence on this. No, he wasn't. I said, well, fortunately, if he wasn't president, he does not get a 21-gun salute. You got to be president. And then they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, the normal salute is three shots, three rifle volleys by a three-man team. At Arlington, they do a larger team because they have more people and that kind of thing. So I've actually had negotiations with people. One lady, this one negotiation I had with her, she said, "I want a 21 gun salute." I said, "Ma'am, I cannot give you a 21 gun salute. I can only commit to the three volleys." She said, "Well, can you have seven guys come out? Because if they're firing three times and you have seven guys, it's 21." I said, "Well, I'd really love to do that, but we don't have enough people to bring seven out on time." "Well, can you have the three guys shoot seven times? And then I have my 21." So I must have been on the phone with her for a half hour, convincing her that, "I'm really sorry, ma'am, but you're only going to get three rifles shooting three times. And that's the best we can." She finally gave in.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
think the last funeral I went to at Arlington is a friend of mine's uncle, and they were convinced that it was a 21 gun salute. I didn't correct them. It just sometimes it's just don't feel like doing that.
yeah, well, I normally try to explain it to people, and they most of them understand. But every once in a while, you get the you get the negotiation. So it is an opportunity to explain that the tradition is really three, and that's what everybody gets.
What's my next question? Your organization has received recognition and several news articles, along with a Congressional Recognition Award, amongst other accolades. Which of these stands out as your proudest achievement?
Well, I'm going to say none of the above. Uh, my personal proudest achievement is the accolades we get from the military honor guard people that come out, and that's evolved over time. We've always had a good relationship with the Army. The Army buries most people out. I would say probably half the people that are buried out there, because of the size of the Army, are Army. But when I started with the Honor Guard back in 2017, there were the other branches were kind of nonchalant about us. The Air Force in particular. The Air Force, when we showed up uh, to do a mission, they would totally ignore us. And over time, we have developed a relationship with the military that they call us and ask for us to come in, even when the family hasn't on many occasions. And when the military comes up to us and says, "You guys are incredible. Uh, you're the best rifle team that we've worked with." To me, that is the biggest accolade that we could ever have, because those guys know what they're talking about. They see it everywhere. They do services not only at Sac Valley, but they do services in other locations, and they may see like VFW or American Legion honor guards or that kind of thing. And if they have a choice of who to work with, they'll call us every time. And that to me is the biggest accolade you could get.
Yeah.
The congressional thing, it's fine, but so somebody got up and babbled about us on the floor of Congress, and then you hang it on your wall and you never hear anything about it again. But to have these guys come up to you after certain services, or come up and say, "Hey, we are really hurting. We don't have a rifle team for this service. Can you stay and do it for us? Oh, we have a retiree and we'd really like to have a rifle team for that. It's not on the schedule, and we stay and do it." That's the most meaningful thing to me about if you want to talk about accolades.
Absolutely. That's or from the families themselves. I would.
Oh yeah, and the families.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that. Um, You had spoke to us about the importance of another organization you work with, known as the Missing in America Project. Can you speak a bit about your experience working with them?
Yeah, that was fascinating to me. I knew absolutely nothing about this. And one of the members when I joined was a Coast Guard guy. His name is Mickey Giacomo. And he is really dedicated to this kind of thing. And conversation, he said he's associated with this Missing in America program. And in fact, they were going to do a service at the cemetery, and he wanted to know if the honor guard could come out and do it. And I said, sure. Tell me a little more about this. Well, the MIAP is a group of people that got together. They found out that I didn't realize this also, that funeral homes, if somebody gets cremated and they don't know who it is, they cremate the body and they stick it on a shelf in the back of the funeral home until somebody comes to get it. I don't think they're allowed to destroy it or anything. Maybe in some states they are or whatever, but often they're not. So this group organized itself in 2006, and they went to a cemetery in Idaho, a funeral homes in Idaho, and they found 21 cremains of forgotten veterans that the remains had never been claimed. They look at the information on the urn, and then they run it through the Department of Defense files, and they find out that this person happened to be a veteran. And these cremains were from the time span of 1890 to 1971. And so what they do is they retrieve the remains and then they arrange for them to be buried. And I sent Dallas some photos of the big one that they did at Sac Valley. I think we put in 60 people. They drove them up in a hearse, but and they had the cremains in this open hearse. And we took them all out. We called out the name of the person, the branch of service, and when they served. And then we did the whole honors thing. We had a 7-man rifle team. One of my colleagues and I folded the flag, and then they were buried in the cemetery. So right now they've visited nearly 3,000 funeral homes. They've identified about 8,000 veterans and interred 8,000 veterans, and it's an ongoing project. It's called MIAP, Missing in America Program. So our guy, who is now retired from our unit, he's about my age, so he's getting a little, he slowed down faster than me, and he's still active in the MIAP, and he's out there visiting funeral homes and collecting information on urns and trying to find out whether these are veterans and then burying them, which is just amazing that there's a commitment of this organization to do that, and they do it nationwide. They have a website you can go on and look it up, and it tells you where their organizations are located and who to contact.
That sounds like a fascinating organization. Okay, lastly, we want to thank you for your time in speaking with us about such an important topic. Honoring those who have served this nation remains a primary focus for our two organizations. Do you have any final thoughts or topics you wish to share before we close out?
Yeah, if you'll indulge me here.
Of course.
One of the major reasons that I love doing this is because it reminds me what the country's all about. When you go out to that cemetery, pardon me, and you look at a service, it's a representation of e pluribus unum, of the country. You could put a white guy in the ground, and there's an Asian there, there's a black there, there's a Mexican there. There's everybody that comes out to honor that person in, from his family and friends is a cross section of the country. And you look at it and you say, particularly in the times that we're living in now, the military is the great equalizer. The military is what the country is all about now. These are the people that respected the country, served the country, and everybody was their brother or sister. And they're colorblind. We're all the same, right? The other thing is a couple of stories that we had about how the U.S. honors the dead. We recently did a service for POW MIA, and there was a person there who is part of the, what do they call it, the Joint POW MIA Accounting Command. It's located in Hawaii. And he described how they're looking for the MIAs in Vietnam and how they use satellites and that kind of thing. And they find places where somebody might be, where somebody's body might be. And they go there and they dig and they don't find anything. And then 10 years later, they go back with new technology. They go over the same site and they say, oh, wait, we were off a little bit. It should be over here. And they go back and they find the person. Pardon me. And the guy said he's talked to other people from other countries. He said the United States is the only country that goes out and finds the remains of people who were lost in battle that were MIA and brings them back. And the other story I heard from a colleague when I was in the service about a visit by some military contingent from Eastern Europe after the wall fell, and they came to visit us, and they were taken on a tour of one of the cemeteries. And our cemeteries are beautiful. And pardon me, the guy from Eastern Europe looked out at the cemetery and he said, these are your military dead. And the American guy said, yes. He said, you take better care of your dead soldiers than we take care of our living soldiers. And that always stuck with me. And then the final thing, one of the most other inspirational things to me about the Honor Guard is the military troops that we work with, the Guard or the active duty Honor Guards or whatever, the young people. A lot of these are really young people, privates, specialists, corporals, and they are so dedicated to their job that it's beyond belief. It gives you faith that if we have people like this, we're going to be okay. Because they talk about the military being the creme of the creme. These guys are the creme of the creme. When you see what's going on in the college campuses nowadays with this demonstration, whatever, and then you talk to these young people and you talk about what their ambitions are and what they want to do with their lives and how committed they are. I mean, they are so committed to their mission that they just want to be perfect. I mean, I've seen instances where they're folding the flag and there might be a new person on and the flag is not folded perfectly. They'll refold the flag right in front of everybody and say, unfold and refold it. If it's really bad, I've seen them finally get to a point where it's manageable. They present the flag. Then after the whole presentations are done, they come back and they ask the next of kin, can we have the flag? It's not perfectly folded. We want to refold it. And they'll take it behind the shelter and they'll refold that flag until it is perfect. And there are other times when I've seen uh, a casket come out with a flag on it. It's not properly uh, tied down, and it blows off. If a corner of that flag touches the ground, the military guy scoops it up, takes it away, says, "This flag is tarnished. We cannot use it." And then they'll go back to their car and they'll get a new flag. They'll run around the back, they'll fold it, and they'll bring that flag back out. They are so committed to perfection. It is just inspirational. So that's why I love this job.
I can see why. You definitely sound like you're dedicated to it, and you I hate to say enjoy, but you definitely um,
Yeah, I
you're
know.
proud of your work.
Yeah,
You take great
and
pride in it.
there's other thing we do. I don't know how long you want me to go on, but there's one other thing. When you're a mission leader with our honor guard, after the military presents the flag, we have little pouches um, with 3 polished shell casings in them. And the mission leader goes up, and after the military presents the flag, the mission leader salutes the casket and brings the shell casing pouch over to the next of kin, the person who has the flag, and presents the casings with a little, we essentially say that they're uh, uh, representing the shell casings, would signify duty, honor, and country. And I like to use the first name of the person has left the field of battle for the final time and now at rest. And I would say that that was one of the most meaningful things to me when I became mission leader. I said, "Holy mackerel!" Uh, Especially we're scheduled for certain services and we're not scheduled for others. But when we're out there, we will shoot for every service, whether we've been requested or not. And I find that if I go up there at a service that's not requested, first of all, when they see us out there, they're shocked because they don't expect us. And then when I go up there and I give the next of kin the shells, sometimes even a man will grab my hand like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you for this tribute." And you just can't but be overwhelmed by how appreciative people are of this service and what it means to them. So that's my piece.
I got just a question for you. Have you talk about how beautiful these cemeteries are. Have you been to any of the overseas cemeteries,
Oh,
like
yeah.
in
Yeah.
Normandy?
Well,
They're-
when I worked with General Electric, um, I used to do these programs. I was in their leadership training center, so we did a lot of training with executives on leadership and that kind of thing. And I uh, I was on the board of visitors at the Carlisle at uh, I keep mixing up the schools, but there's a Army school at Carlisle. The
not the Army War College, but one of the other
Yeah, the
ones.
Army War College, right?
Okay.
So I hooked up with one of their historians, and we went on. They took us to Gettysburg staff ride, right? So in talking to General Nelson, I said,
Oh, I know him. Yeah.
you know, you
Hal
know
Nelson.
Nelson,
Yeah.
Hal Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He used to
if
be
you
our
see him,
president. He used to be the president of the foundation when I first started. Yeah.
oh, guy's great.
Yeah.
So I talked to him. I said, General Nelson, you know, as you go through the battle, this is like a business in many respects. You talk about strategy. How do you set your business strategy? How do you implement it through your tactics? How do you handle the logistics of your business? How do you do competitive analysis or whatever? I said, I'd like to bring my class out here from GE and do a staff ride. You do the military commentary, I'll do the business commentary. He said, wow, that's cool. So we did Gettysburg. And then we did Normandy. So I was doing a program in Europe. I said, we're not going to do Gettysburg. I'm taking them to Normandy. And we spent a couple of days at Normandy going through the whole battle. With I think Nelson came out and did that with us, or one of his colleagues did. And we visited the cemetery there. So we visited military cemeteries there. And the other thing I did was I went on the Band of Brothers tour that Stephen Ambrose does.
Yeah.
And you visit a whole bunch of cemeteries there. And it's very impressive what the cemetery division does, because they manage them, right, all over the world. And I learned in the cemetery we visited Holland, near where the Pegasus Bridge was, they assign a school kid to each grave, and they are responsible for maintaining that grave. And they come out there every year at holidays and at remembrances of military activities and that kind of thing. And they take care of the grave. When they graduate from elementary school, they hand it off to another kid. They've been doing it ever since the war. And
in fact, I just reviewed a book for Army Magazine called Remember Us, and it talks about the war and then the Americans that came through that area. And then the establishment of the cemetery, and then the program of the Dutch people to take care of individual graves. It's a wonderful book. If I highly recommend it. And I don't recommend a lot of books, but that's two thumbs up. Yeah, great book.
Yeah,
and it reads. You can read it in a couple days. It's a really good book if you've got that kind of time.
Yeah, well, every once in a while, I'm a very poor reader, unfortunately. So, but you visit. I've been to Punch Bowl too, and so I've been to a number of cemeteries, and they're all just so incredibly impressive. So, what can I say?
When you did the Stephen Ambrose tour, do you recall who led it? Do you remember the name of the?
Yeah, actually.
Well, was it Kevin Hemel?
No, it wasn't him. It was a guy named Matt, I think.
Okay.
Young guy.
I think Kevin does tours for Stephen Ambrose. So.
Yeah, I think he does. I recognize the name because Ambrose does podcasts every week.
Oh.
If you haven't seen them, they're really good. They do a 1-hour podcast on Sundays. It's called History Happy Hour.
Huh.
And I usually just write down the date and whatever, and then you can go on YouTube and watch it.
Sure.
And they have some good ones. And I remember that name because he's one of the historians, and he sometimes is involved in what's going on. Like, I think they're doing one they did one yesterday on now I can't remember, but they did one recently on the Army in the Pacific, because everybody associates the Pacific with the Marines.
Right.
And they said the Army actually did most of the fighting. Yeah. So this guy wrote a book about the Army in the Pacific. And so they interview him.
Probably John McManus, I'm going to say.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, so...
I had somebody, I figured out that the Army did 3 times as many amphibious landings as the Marines did.
Yeah,
but
right.
You don't hear about the Army.
Yeah, but they, and they often do somebody wrote a book about a particular unit, and so they'll, like the 1st Division or the 25th Division or whatever, so they'll talk about, I think the 4th Division did a lot of fighting in Europe, and nobody ever heard of the 4th Division. All they know is Patton. So,
1st Division, Screaming Eagles, 82nd
right.
Airborne. Those are the ones you
82nd.
hear about.
Those are the ones you hear
Maybe
about.
maybe
Yeah.
3rd Infantry Division because of Audie Murphy, but
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, actually, when I was in Europe in '64, my engineer unit supported the third.
okay.
Yeah. Um, my battalion, the Ninth Engineers, actually had two unit citations. One for the Remagen Bridge. They were the engineers
Oh wow.
that disabled the
So
explosive on the
for
Remagen
sure.
Bridge,
Yeah.
and I think they were also in the Bulge, so they got unit citations for both of those. Yeah, there's a lot of God. You could. I know I envy you guys because you spend your whole life researching this stuff, and it's just so inspirational. What can you
It's not a
say?
bad it's not a bad job. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind
for
of,
sure.
yeah, we enjoy what we do. Won't get rich doing it, but there's
No, that's the way it is. It's always the way it is. You know,
my brother's a teacher, so that's a that's a really good example. Well, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank you for your time, Captain Mercer, and all that you do. For our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Army history, visit armyhistory.org, where we have a wonderful collection of history articles in our Army History Center.